What's going on, Packers fans? Welcome into the Packers Report. My name is Joey Peterson, and with the deadline creeping closer and closer, Green Bay has garnered a ton of trade interest around the National Football League. Multiple players, multiple different positions, both sides of the football. If you have been off of social media for like the past 24 hours, you have missed a ton. So coming up on today's show, which teams have called on who? I'm going to tell you all 5 players and all, I think, 6 or 7 teams that have hit Brian Gutekunst up and seen if the Green Bay Packers would be interested in making any type of trade. I'll trade you guys something. Daily free videos for a subscription. All you got to do, hit that subscribe button and join us because we are 48 subscribers away from 15,000. We've been growing like crazy, and we're not going to stop anytime soon. If you haven't joined us yet, do it today. Be one of those 48 to get us to 15,000. What you get in return, daily free Packers shows. All right, let's go ahead and start in the wide receiver room because that's what was on the thumbnail, Romeo Doubs, and that's probably what you guys are most interested in. And I said earlier this week, I think I said it late last week as well, we talked a lot about wide receiver trade rumors over the last 4 or 5 months, and it seemed like they've kind of come to a halt. At least late last week they did. But I always said, Brian Gutekunst, make sure you keep that ringer on. Make sure you've got your phone close by. Because if anybody does want to overpay for any wide receivers for Green Bay that might be on the trade block, I've always said that I would be interested in. Well, guess who else is interested? The New York Football Giants. They apparently have called to the Green Bay Packers regarding Dontayvion Wicks, Romeo Doubs, and Christian Watson. All of these trade rumors are coming courtesy of our man Easton Butler on social media. Okay, he's incredibly tapped in. He's made a ton of calls before they even happen, and he's the one that let us know that the Giants have called on all 3 of the wide receivers for the Green Bay Packers. Now, why would they do this? Well, it's pretty easy. Malik Neighbors, their star wide receiver, tore his ACL a couple weeks ago, and since Jackson Dart has been thrusted into that lineup, they have beaten the Los Angeles Chargers, they've beaten the Philadelphia Eagles, and they might feel with the NFC East being a little bit down this year, they could maybe compete for a spot in the playoffs. 5 different teams have called on Romeo Doubs in the last 2 weeks per sources. Romeo Doubs has been a name that we've discussed on this channel pretty much since it started. We knew that him coming up on a contract year with the player that he is, with what he has the ability to do, that a lot of people would be interested in possibly trading for him. Apparently 2 teams have an offer on the table for Romeo Doubs. Now this happened before the Jayden Reed injury. So before week 2, both the Las Vegas Raiders and the Carolina Panthers actually had offers on the table to get Doubs to either of those cities. Now, since week 2, both of those teams haven't been doing great, especially Las Vegas. Carolina has stacked some wins here or there, but I've got a feeling they're not going to be the most aggressive buyers at the deadline. Before the Jayden Reed injury, those 2 guys put offer on the table, but 4 other teams actually just called to check on them. Jacksonville, San Francisco, New England, and Pittsburgh. But again, this all happened before the Reed injury. So this all happened before the Thursday Night Football game against the Washington Commanders. Since the Jayden Reed injury, these teams all called last week. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the New York Giants, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, all 3 teams that we've talked a ton about that need wide receiver help, and all 3 teams that feels like after the first 6 weeks of the season could be contenders this year. This feels very, very legitimate at the moment, okay? A lot of the things we talked about in the offseason was just speculation, was just looking at the cold, hard facts. The Green Bay Packers have a very crowded wide receiver room. Romeo Doubs is at the end of his deal, and a lot of teams around the league need wide receiver help. But it kind of just stopped there. Well, now we've got reports from multiple sources, both sides of the coin, and this one, that these teams are calling and they are offering. In my opinion, there is a greater than 0% chance that somebody is dealt. Whether it's Romeo Doubs, whether it's Dontayvion Wicks, whether it's Christian Watson. But then you got to ask the question, would Green Bay deal Romeo Doubs? Given how he's played this season? given how he's looked since Christian Watson and Jayden Reed have both gone down, and he's kind of been pushed into that wide receiver one spot. In 5 games this year, 234 yards, 13 yards a catch, 4 touchdowns. He had a hat trick on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys, and in my opinion, the most important part of his stat profile this year, not a lot of drops. And Jeremy Fowler, we read you this report just a couple weeks ago, talked about him possibly being extended. The sides have had cursory talks, keeping in contact about the future, talking about Romeo Doubs and the Green Bay Packers. Doubs staying in Green Bay beyond 2025 is at least a possibility, but getting a bargain deal for an emerging receiver without a 1,000-yard season, think Buffalo's 4-year, $53 million pact with Khalil Shakir, is getting increasingly harder. Doubs is building a case as a number 1 free agent option. Mike Evans, Jacoby Myers, and Juwan Jennings are in the class but aren't entering their second contract like Romeo Doubs, who is 25. Youth always pays. So I've kind of got conflicting thoughts on Romeo Doubs. When it comes to Christian Watson, though, it feels like he is safe for multiple reasons. Because he's coming off an ACL tear, I don't think that Green Bay would get anything they deem worthy to trade him away. And they just signed him to a mini extension, kind of a, hey, we're going to give you another year, prove it to us to see if you can stay healthy, and when you are healthy, be an impact out there on the field. My first thought is Green Bay would have to get a good offer for Romeo Doubs if they wanted to part ways with him. They would have to get an offer, I think, probably around a 3rd-round pick. But you also have to remember his contract is up at the end of the year. So you got to ask yourself, if he goes away in free agency, you would get a compensatory draft pick. Maybe it'd be a 4th. Do you take a 3rd now? Or do you just ride out the season with Doubs and you're okay with a 4th-round compensatory pick? My second thought, Green Bay wouldn't need as good of an offer for a guy like Dontayvion Wicks, okay? And I don't think they would get as good of an offer for a guy like Dontayvion Wicks as they would for Romeo Doubs. Sure, Wicks is younger, but his production just hasn't been there as much as Doubs has been. And his drop issue, although it's been better this year, it was pretty massive last year. But then you got to think about your quarterback. You got to think about your head coach. You got to think about your offense. Because if they don't trade anybody, by the end of this season, if everybody stays healthy and if everybody comes back from injury on time and on schedule, your wide receiver core would be Matthew Golden, Jayden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Dontayvion Wicks. That is a phenomenal 5 guys right there. What I think happens, I think the Packers play their next few games. They don't make any moves. I think they see how Christian Watson looks coming back from injury, whether he plays against Arizona or they keep him out another week and play him against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they see if Matthew Golden keeps rolling and then kind of see how the team looks, feels, and fares after that Week 8 game against Pittsburgh. But they're going to have big eyes on Christian Watson after the injury and to see if Matthew Golden can keep on consistently improving from week to week like he has been. If the Packers feel like they're able to compete for a Super Bowl with their current roster, I feel like they'll be incentivized to just kind of keep everything there. But if they struggle for the next few games, they might be willing to trade somebody. Or if they absolutely dominate without a guy like Dontayvion Wicks not helping that much, I feel like he might be gone. It is a slippery slope. There's a lot of things that could happen. It's kind of feeling crazy right now. Coming up, those are not the only trade rumors. No. Those are just the ones on the offensive side of the football. We got to talk about the ones on the defense, namely the edge rushers. That is coming up on today's show. But before that, what do you think? Will the Packers deal a wide receiver at the deadline? Give me a yes or give me a no in that comment section down below. I got to tell y'all real quick about our awesome sponsor at Underdog before we move on. They are giving you an unbelievable deal right now. If you download the app and use our promo code PackersReport, you score $100 in bonus funds or entries when you play your first $5. Football season's in full swing, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players go higher or lower on stats like rushing yards, receptions, touchdowns, and more. If you get your picks right, you could win up to $5,000 times your cash. I got some picks for Saturday's game, 2 days away from my alma mater, taking on Alabama. I'm going to go higher, 26.5 yards for Chris Brazel's longest reception. I'm going to go higher on Joey Aguilar, 1.5 passing touchdowns. And give me the lower on Ty Simpson, 290.5 pass yards. If you like me, if you like this show, you'll be cheering for the Vols this weekend. Download the app today and sign up with promo code Packers Report to score $100 in bonus funds or entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code Packers Report. Underdog. Make picks, win money. Must be 18 or older, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 or older in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play-get-terms_DFS_HTML for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call 24/7 Helpline at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. So per sources, again, 2 teams have called asking about Packers edge rusher Rashan Gary. Who are those 2 teams, you ask? Well, they are familiar faces that we've talked about already in today's show. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the San Francisco 49ers picked up the phone, called Brian Gutekunst, and just checked on the availability of this team's second best edge rusher. And honestly, those 2 teams, in my opinion, kind of make a ton of sense. Okay? Very, very similar records. Still have the belief that they're going to be able to compete. Need a little bit of help on the edge rusher front, especially when you're talking about San Francisco. When you look at their 2025 pass rush, they are bottom 2 or bottom 3 in the National Football League when it comes to sacks, quarterback pressures, and quarterback pressure right now. A ton of that, the reason for it, is that Nick Bosa tore his ACL. I still believe in Robert Saleh and his ability to be a defensive coordinator. And if he could get a piece like Rashan Gary back in that building, I think that production would go up a ton. Jeremy Fowler, more specifically on Rashan Gary. Other potential options I suspect the 49ers will check on include rushers Rashan Gary, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, and Arden Key. If the Packers won't part with Gary, and I don't think they would, they have a pass rusher, Kingsley Enagbare, a former starter who's relegated to a reserve role in a contract year. And I kind of agree with Jeremy Fowler. I would be absolutely shocked if the Green Bay Packers dealed away Rashan Gary. I just don't think that would make much sense for it at all. He's had a really, really good season. And sure, he may have slowed down over the past couple of weeks. Been a little bit of a ghost against Dallas, a little bit of a ghost against the Bengals, but still, 18 tackles, 4 of those for loss, 4.5 sacks. There is a reason, in my opinion, they traded for Micah Parsons because they felt with just Rashan Gary and Lucas Van Ness and Kingsley Enagbare, this team's edge rushers weren't good enough. They want to pair a guy like Micah Parsons up with Rashan Gary, and the fruit we've seen from it so far has been amazing. Now, when it comes to Enagbare, I would not be surprised one bit if he ends up getting dealt. You just kind of have to think about his last offseason. He stepped up last year when Preston Smith got traded. But then over the offseason, he kind of was sent back a little bit in the depth chart, Lucas Van Ness, and then they ended up trading for Micah Parsons, which just sent him further down that edge rusher depth chart and edge rusher rotation. And his stats have kind of reflected that. 8 tackles on the year, only 1 quarterback hurry, 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss as well. So, in my opinion, Enagbare, if they can deal him, I think they would. I just don't know how much interest that he'd garner. Maybe guys can look at last season, saw what he did, think that, okay, I could fix him. He's really, really young. I think that's another one of his pros. We're actually going to go a little bit more detail on Rashan Gary tomorrow. But I just don't see a world where you're getting anything better than a 5th-round pick for Rashan Gary, or for Kingsley Enagbare. Just doesn't necessarily make sense to me. I'm curious, what do you think the percent chance is that the Packers deal away Rashan Gary? Scale it for me 1 to 100 in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys got me followed on social media, okay? At Joey Peterson on Twitter and at Joey Peterson8 on Instagram. This was a jam-packed show, lots of information. You probably feel like you were just drinking from a fire hose. Believe me, I kind of feel the same way, and I'm the one who just talked for 15 minutes straight. If you subscribe, these are the types of videos you'll get on a daily basis, all 100% free. If you want to be the most informed Green Bay Packers fan on the planet, you got to join us right here on the Packers Report. And again, help us get to 15,000 subscribers.